From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. What would the Prophet Muhammad have to say about this statement if he were alive? First of all, he wouldn't have called Israel Palestine. Not once is Palestine mentioned in the Quran. Instead, it is always referred to as the Holy Land or the land that was promised to the children of Israel. You've heard right. The Quran says explicitly that Allah promised the land of Israel to the children of Israel. To quote directly from the Quran, "My people, enter the Holy Land, which Allah has assigned for you." Who does Allah mean when he says, "my people"? To understand, we must read the sentence before, which states, "When Moses said to his people, 'Oh, my people, remember God's blessings upon you, when he placed prophets among you, and made you kings, and gave you what he never gave any other people. My people, enter the Holy Land, which Allah has assigned for you.'" In fact, Muhammad refers to the children of Israel many times throughout the Quran. In a chapter called Surat Bani Israel, the chapter of the children of Israel, Muhammad depicts the complete story of the Exodus from Egypt and again calls the children of Israel to settle the Holy Land, a story we're all familiar with from the Bible. Again, to quote from the Quran, "So Pharaoh wanted to scare the Israelites out of the land of Egypt, but we drowned him and all of those with him. And we said to the children of Israel, after Pharaoh, 'Inhabit the land. And when the promise of the hereafter arrives, he will bring you all together.'" In fact, the more you read the Quran, the more you understand the unbreakable bond between the message of Muhammad and the Hebrew Bible. He actually declares it again and again. And before this Quran, the book of Moses was revealed as a guide and a mercy. And this book is a confirmation in the Arabic tongue. And you don't have to rely on my interpretations of these verses from the Quran to show a true recognition by Muhammad that the land of Israel was promised to the children of Israel. Many respected Muslim sages have also noted this throughout history. Khalil Muhammad was a Muslim professor of religion at San Diego State University. He explains, "It's in the Muslim consciousness that the land first belonged to the Jews. It doesn't matter if the Jews were exiled 500 years or 2,000 years, the Holy Land, as mentioned in Quran, belongs to Moses and his people, the Jews." The British-based Imam Muhammad al-Husseini explained how in the early days of Islam, in the 8th and 9th century, it was clear to Muslim sages such as Muhammad ibn al-Ta'abri, one of the most important commentators of the Quran, that the land of Israel was promised to the people of Israel as part of an eternal covenant between Allah and the people of Israel. And we don't even have to go all the way to the 8th century to hear this message. Even Faisal, the king of Iraq and the son of Hussein, the Sharif of Mecca in the beginning of the 20th century, respected the Jews and viewed favorably the return of the Jews to their homeland as part of fulfilling the words in the Quran. King Faisal said in 1919, "We Arabs look with the deepest sympathy on the Zionist movement. We will do our best, insofar as we are concerned, to help them through. We will wish the Jews a most hearty welcome home." Well, you could even say that many devoted Muslims were actually Zionists, but unfortunately that changed, and not so long ago. I'm sure at this point you're all thinking the obvious question. If the Quran is so clear about the right of the Jews to live in the land of Israel, why don't we hear about this more? As Islam started losing its power as an influential culture in the world, in areas such as literature, mathematics, architecture, and politics, Islamic extremism arose in its place. These extremists use Islam to extract power and money, control women, and foster dictatorships. Extreme Islam, which is championed by Hamas and ISIS, is based on interpretations written hundreds of years after the days of Muhammad. These interpretations have overtaken the real message of the Quran. The violent declaration of the Islamic terror groups against the Jews and Israel are all based on commentary about the Quran and not on the Quran itself. Khalil Muhammad, who I mentioned earlier, states, "The idea that Israel does not belong to the Jews is a modern one, probably based on the Mideast rejection of European colonialism, but certainly not having anything to do with the Quran. The unfortunate fact is that most Muslims do not read the Quran and interpret it on the basis of its own words. Rather, they let imams and preachers do that for them. So where does the word Palestine come from? Palestine is a name given to the geographic land of Israel after the revolt of the Jews against the Romans in the 2nd century. The Romans, in an effort to erase the memory of the Jews from the land after the Jews revolted, named it Palestine after the Philistines, the nation that had lived on the southern shore of Israel some 3,000 years ago, and originally came from the Greek islands. Even though the Philistines didn't exist as a nation in the days of the Romans, they're still remembered as the great enemies of the Israelites in the Bible. It is for this reason that the Romans chose to name the land after them. But history has never forgotten the name Israel. And even though empires throughout centuries have used the word Palestine to refer to the land, this was mostly for administrative purposes. The fact of the matter is, there was never a state called Palestine, and there were never a people called themselves Palestinians, not until the 20th century. History certainly has not forgotten the name Israel, and now we know that Muhammad didn't forget the promise of the land of Israel to the children of Israel either.